This week on Media Delta, Nick Arcade. For when you want to put your Magician Lord skills to the test to win an Apple computer and a really weird camcorder. Also a karaoke machine. And sneakers that ratchet. Because it was the 90s. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Media Delta. Today we have a show that's not necessarily... We haven't played a game so much based on this. This didn't really have any games based on it because it itself is based on games. And a while ago, we took a look at Nickelodeon Guts. But this episode, we are taking a look at another Nickelodeon property. This time, we're taking a look at Nick Arcade, which was, unlike Guts, this was a more traditional game show that was, in fact, based around games, sort of. It originally aired on January 4th, 1992. Last episode was November 6th of 1992, although this show was in syndication for so long or just in reruns for so long that it seemed like it lasted longer, even though it lasted less than a year. And we watched a handful of episodes, mostly in season 2, because that's what was available. I was not the only one who watched this, so please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Axe, and I'm here for Phil Moore's gold shirt.
Hey, I'm Coolio, video game wizard.
I'm Portable Stove. I can't stop wearing the Hawaiian shirt.
I'm Torpid Typist, and I'm here to sing the praises of Joey Fatone.
Yes. So this show I probably call this cult classic. It is one of the Nickelodeon game shows. It's probably one that a lot of people have pretty good. They're pretty fond for it, and have a lot of good memories of it. But we took a look at it, and we're going to discuss how well it is aged. So we might as well just go ahead and start in with questions. So, X, what was your general impressions, and are there any particular element that you'd like to bring up?
So this was the show back when I was a kid. Like this was one of two shows that I aspired to one day be on. The other being Legends of the Hidden Temple. Damn that Shrine of the Silver Monkey. But rewatching this, it was an interesting experience because, like, as a kid, you watch it and you're just blinded by the video games and the cool effects. And as an adult, you're jaded enough to see behind it and see sort of the what you call it, limitations of the format. But overall, like, it's still, everybody involved seems to be having at least a good enough time to warrant the number of seasons and episodes it has. Phil Moore seems to be having a good time, or at the very least, he's there. But I mean, it was enjoyable to watch again, even if you really only needed to watch like one episode to get an idea of what's going on. You genuinely didn't need to watch every episode that you linked to really build an opinion on the show.
Yeah, I could. The problem was also, especially with from what I remember watching it, like, I saw an episode and then basically it all came back that really, yeah, you really only, if you want an idea of what the show is, you really only need to watch an episode, because there isn't the only real difference between, like, there wasn't any like format change. The only differences are just what appeared in each episode, because it's pretty much always the same. It's a pretty standard format.
And it's interesting because the format worked, sort of. We'll talk more about that during one of the other questions, but overall, it's an interesting show, and you can see why it's more cult classic-y than it was a runaway hit. Like, it didn't have the success of Guts, and that's largely because of just the format itself.
Which is a shame, because I think it's actually much better than Guts.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I actually preferred the video game stuff to the running around gyms and shit like that. Um, as far as a single element, I want to call out that the ending segment where they go into the game room and I believe it was actually a blue screen at the time.
It's a green screen.
Was
Uh,
it? I could have sworn they said it was a blue screen.
No,
So-
I know a video was
so-
posted.
So the thing is that I believe, because after this I went and looked up. I also linked a interview with Phil Moore at a convention, I think in 2016, and he was talking about that entire segment, which will probably go a little bit further on. I don't know if we want to talk about it now or later, but it was either a blue or green screen. I think there was also a recreation, I believe, in 2015 that was put in a museum.
Mhm.
That I believe they use a green screen, but I believe he said it might have actually been a blue screen.
Okay.
But it
Either
was-
way, it was
it was
a chroma key.
Yeah, it was chroma key essentially.
But rewatching that segment, like they obviously had to do some kind of interesting setup to make it look like they were actually going on to the things that were on screen, despite it not being there. And it's still, like, even to this day, it's still kind of, I don't want to say it blows my mind, but it's still really cool what they did with the budget that they had.
Oh, definitely.
it-
It is pretty neat, but holy shit, there is no feedback
yeah,
whatsoever.
So, yeah. So, in an interview, Phil Moore actually was like very much saying that it's like he had no idea. Like he felt sorry for every person who had to go. He actually felt sorry for every contestant on that show because it was apparently just like you don't really think about, because you think most game shows it's like mostly adults, but when you're a kid, having to do all the pre-production stuff, like having to put on like makeup and like getting into weird clothes and having like people having to like to perform do the makeup and like wire stuff, like wire microphones through your clothes,
yeah,
would just be really weird. But the way that he described it is, yeah, it's just you go into a room that is ice cold backstage, and you go into that video zone room, which is like was like 120 degrees in there, and it's entirely green or entirely whatever the color was, and your only source of like your only feedback was looking at a 19-inch Trinitron that was like 20 feet away.
Ugh.
So
yeah.
so you like he was saying, it's like, yeah, you see the kids that are just kind of stopping, just looking at something. That's because they're squinting at a screen that's so tiny that they can't even see what's going on.
Yeah,
The
like, there's
screen is
one
tiny,
episode.
but the like bad zones that are being occupied by enemy sprites or whatever, that's fucking massive. But they can't
Yeah.
see it.
They are
But not
also
a-
massive, which is also really
Yeah.
good when the kids are tall, and it causes a lot of problems for those games, and they get hit a lot because of it.
Yeah, like one of the, I think it was the fourth video that we watched, or that I watched, because I don't watch with you people. And the one kid clearly ducked low enough to get under the one cactus, but it still triggered anyway because his hitbox was huge because he's a
Yeah.
big kid.
There
It
was
was-
one team of two, and both of them, the guy and the gal, were tall. They were tall. They were probably on the older end too, but they were quite tall compared to everyone else. So when they went through, they got hit by everything.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
there's also the matter that, especially during the third round, like oftentimes they would, they would die and you restart the game, but oftentimes there was someone that was standing exactly where the video game master would spawn in, and so that immediately take like a million hits.
Yeah, there are like no iframes or anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like the segment was really fucking cool, but also seemed very, very, very unfair.
Yeah, it definitely was. And yeah, um he was talking about that apparently the way that that was working is that it was essentially it was a screen that was basically like it was like a game screen, but it was essentially something that you would click on using a mouse. But what they did was basically the mouse click would correspond to anything that was the person. So essentially their entire body was their hitbox.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to discuss.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, first and foremost, this is a very 90s children's game show. Very vibrant presentation, very wacky host, which we'll talk about in a bit here, and very video game centric. One thing that I will point out, though, is that, like, for wanting to focus on video games, I feel like they were kind of trying to cram as much as they possibly could in there, and there's a whole lot that really doesn't have to do with anything in particular, like the video puzzles. Pop quiz questions could be pretty much any category at all. But I guess, yeah. So it's just trying to, I don't know what it's trying to do.
Balance them and yeah.
Yeah, it's just trying to fill as much space as possible and do it as quickly as possible. But yeah, what I wanted to point out in particular was the video game room at the end, which Axe has already done. So,
Is there anything else you were thinking of?
I do remember you. I think it was you specifically mentioning the really, really tight time limits in the chat.
There's a couple of people mentioned that, but yeah, it is a very fast-moving show. It's a show that really doesn't fit in the half-hour slot that is a lot allocated to it. So, like, they get through like 6 or 7 spaces, and time has run out. We got to go to the goal now, and it's like, yeah, it could have done with a little more time for sure.
Yeah, the format was super rigid.
And also something that I just kind of thought of, there did not seem to be very much editing in between
Yeah.
like the thing.
Absolutely not. You see Fillmore just kind of rolling with it like, oh, all right. What's this? Just they don't really edit out any of the flubs that he does.
Yeah.
There is some editing, as evidenced from from the interview that was linked to us here, but very little. Just pretty much when they have to cut the show.
Yeah, because it's like it is incredibly smooth going from bit to bit to bit. And if it was either that entire recording segment took like 10 minutes, or they had some fantastic editors, because you cannot tell when the actual, like, when is it like forward in time a little bit. Which I I don't know if that's either impressive or very budget friendly. I'll say it like that.
The show just feels very budget in general, honestly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Dear Lord, did it feel budget?
I was gonna say they probably spent all that budget on the Neo Geo stuff they had to get.
No wonder why they used them for so many episodes straight.
Yeah, I think because I swear that because it always seems like they have a pattern for, like, in the video, like in the video challenge. Actually, was anyone going to talk about that, or Stove or Torpo? Were you going to talk about that?
I mean, I could.
Well, I was gonna say I'll just leave that for mine then. So was that what you're thinking, Coolio?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, Stove.
So I guess I was not. It took me a while to learn that this show existed when I was younger. Like, I actually never watched it until Nickelodeon 2 or whatever proprietary channel existed until that was. So I didn't watch it when I was younger, so I didn't know about it. I didn't know, oh, hey, there's a video game show. I want to be on that. And I'd only watched like 2 episodes when I did find out about it. So in this case, my general impressions are pretty much again, yeah, it's a 90s Nickelodeon game show, except there's no slime involved, surprisingly.
Yeah.
There's just video screens and Phil Moore. I for what it was, I kind of enjoyed it. I had fun with it. Definitely agreed that um it seemed like the format was extremely rigid. They didn't really have time to do much. I actually what the thing that I wanted to bring up was the map. Just because I didn't watch all the episodes again. I watched a couple and then I kind of felt like, okay, I kind of get the gist of this now. Um there's Mikey, who's the avatar for both teams. You're meant to guide Mikey to the goal. Well, most of the time the goal is like 10 squares away, but they only have time for like 6 or 7, like was said before. And in general, like 3 of those squares are going to be the bully. Sometimes the bully is right next to the bully, which just causes a lot of problems on its own. Just, okay, you have control of Mikey. Okay, no, now they have control of Mikey. It seemed like it was rigid, but also kind of not well thought out. At
Remember
the
that
same
time one
time,
team got hit by the bully 3 times in a row?
yeah,
Yep.
That fucking happened.
yeah. So I think they had the idea for something really good there. It wasn't necessarily super well executed, but I still think for what it is, it's really fun. And yeah, the element I want to bring up is the map, in which also Mikey just annoys the shit out of me for some reason. He doesn't talk or do anything, but I hate how he looks. I hate how he skateboards. I hate that he's always going to the mall.
Yeah. This
If
isn't a complaint that I have with the show. It's a complaint that I have with Amazon. What was their episode like? They had an entire season. Like that season had like 50 some episodes. Why did the 7 that they picked were a really bad sampling? Because it was all the same area. It was all the school. There is definitely more thing. All the time, like the enemy was always the bully. And there's like, I looked it up. There's like 8 bullies in there's like 8 enemies in that, like in the entire thing.
One
Also,
of
like
which
5 of them
is
had the same cabinets the whole way through.
one
Yes.
of which is extremely yikes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just don't have witch doctors in anything unless you're Diablo.
But also,
Even then,
if we're talking about the board, I should mention these boards are huge and chock full of shit. There is so much stuff in them, but they have no fucking time.
yeah, like the first episode that was on the list, I think the first episode of season 1, uh, was like one of the few times that a team actually hit the goal. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, why wouldn't you like swivel around and try to get more stuff? But oh, well, you don't have the time to do that. That's why.
so I'm looking at a board. It is, let's see, 3 by 1, 2, 3. It's 3 by 6 essentially, and you have enough time for
Usually around
maybe
like 6 or
Not
7.
even half of them.
yeah.
Yeah, you'd have time for more than half of them if like 2/3 of them were just you landing on game over. Just
As I said,
continuously,
it's usually around like 6 or 7 at most.
just continuously like tennis balling between the bullies. Just yeah, and that's kind of my element. Just I feel like the map is too big for what they wanted to do. Like they could have thought of something better, I think, in that case. Or something else I had, but I think I'm going to save that for when we actually get to the format question.
Okay. So you're good.
I'm good.
All right, Torpo.
So like I watched this as a kid, but I barely remembered it. But like going back and looking at it now, I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed it and got into it. Like it was actually pretty fun, though I feel like Phil Moore's energy really helped and was very contagious, though I'll get into that more later.
Yeah.
He was a good host. But just in general, I actually had quite a bit of fun with it. Uh I will say their selection of games was weirdly limited. And also
Like,
kids were always afraid of going for certain cabinets and it was very obvious.
yeah, no one picks Super R-Type.
Nobody picked Super R-Type and that's perfectly okay. But
Nobody should have picked Super R-Type, to be honest.
it's
Yeah.
true. Also, some of those challenges were really suspect. Like they didn't quite know what to do
So-
with that game.
Yeah, because a lot of it was in the era where I was like, well, just get points, I guess. I don't what's like defeating or anything. Also, they give you like 30 seconds, so it's not like you really have enough time to do anything.
Once again, that's like a format thing I'll get into later, but yeah, it's oh, you can feel the time limits. Also, you can feel how budget the show is because of the prizes they give out, like shoes and a Casio, and
Eh,
Do you like nerds? Here, have a box of nerds.
and a Singalodian machine, or as they call it in Japan, karaoke.
But in the US, they call it Singalodian.
Yes.
One of
Apparently.
one of the freaking main prizes was what they called a basketball machine or a basketball system. I'm just like, it's just you can just call it a basketball hoop. It's fine. Like that's
Yeah, it
what most
was
people
just a
consider it as.
It was a hoop you could roll around, the normal hoop you got for a fucking
Okay,
driveway.
okay. The only one prize that I do want to call out that I thought like I would actually like that is at first it looked like it was just a ping pong table. It was like, oh, it's just a ping pong table, but it had an attachment that lets you like have like a pitching machine in the table, which I thought was neat. I would like
Okay,
that.
but we want to talk about that really like high-end camera they were offering too.
Yeah, that's a dad gift. Like
Yeah, like what the fuck?
And
that,
for that matter, the Apple computer. I mean, just the description was, specifically selling it to adults.
yeah.
What kid is going to enjoy, spreadsheets?
Yeah, well, also the fact that was like it's Macintosh era a computer, so it's like the one that's like the least gaming focused of all of them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thousands of applications.
None of them games.
Except you get Dark Castle. That's it.
If you're really nice to your parents, maybe they'll buy you fucking Uninvited or something.
Yeah.
I think there was a part of SimCity as well.
I mean, there was stuff on the Macintosh, but it was still the Macintosh.
Yes.
It's like of getting the 16-bit consoles, like in the TurboGrafx.
There was also the trips to fucking Universal Studios, which is like, really reaching deep into the piggy bank for that one, aren't you?
You can stay on the lot for like a couple more hours.
and play tennis at your resort.
So you play tennis at a resort. I'm going down to Orlando, Florida to play fucking tennis at my hotel. Hell yeah. But God, it was definitely one of their more budget shows, but that's kind of a shame because it was one of their more interesting ones too. Like Guts, as has been mentioned in the past, was really boring. But like this is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
And also, do you think that they paid for flights?
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, specifically to the hotel, but also those people are probably local too. So
Yeah.
regardless, though, that's my.
All right. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I wouldn't say that I was super like on my seat into it, but it was definitely more enjoyable than watching like Guts. It is one that I enjoyed watching, that's for sure. Um and yeah, the thing that I wanted to talk about was like the thing that actually drew me in as a kid, which was the arcade part, which was the actual like video challenge, which showed up incredibly like was barely there. Like, because there's like some like rounds where you just don't get it. Like you don't get like the main thing about the show.
Yeah, that definitely should have figured in a little more into the show.
Yeah. Which also I'm looking at the list of every game that was featured on there. The one that I do specifically want to call out because I am kind of mad that they did not put it in the list because it's actually a very notable thing they had on there. This that they had Sonic 2 on there. But it was only on an episode that actually had was actually a special episode that had characters or like it had I think it was two Nickelodeon shows against each other. But it had Melissa Joan Hart and the kid who played Fergus from Closer Explains It All. Uh, that episode is notable because it they played Sonic 2. But the thing is that Sonic 2 had not come out yet. So they were playing a prototype version of Sonic 2 that no one has found a dump for yet. It is a version that has a very weird look. Like Emerald Hill Zone looks similar to what it normally is, but it's actually slightly different. And also, the music that's playing in the background is the Starlight Zone music from Sonic One, which that's like the one interesting game or like the one notable thing about that. But like, look at the list. This is actually where I found out about some pretty neat games. Like, it's where I first saw Gun-Nac for the first time. It's where I think I saw El Viento for the first time. Looking at this list, I don't remember Shadow of the Beast being on there, but of course that was on there. It's like Super Ghouls and Ghost was on there, like Sonic 1 and 2
As a
was
kid, it
shown
was
there.
the first time I had heard about ActRaiser.
Yeah, ActRaiser was another one that appeared a lot. I don't remember Green Dog ever showing up, but apparently it did. Also, I forgot about Snow Brothers actually being in the game. Also, Hyperzone. But
Which everyone sucked at.
yeah,
I find one weird thing with the Hyperzone one is, you have 30 seconds to get a certain number of points, but during the entire last 5 seconds of it, nothing happens.
yeah. Like you just run into a part that it's like there's no enemies. And yeah, I'm just kind of looking at this like, yeah, apparently they had at what because it always seemed like the cabinets they had, and I'm pretty sure this was like it was like this for every episode. It was always Genesis, NES, Genesis, Neo Geo, SNES. Like, they always had two Genesises, an NES, a Neo Geo, and a SNES. Which usually had like their SNES games were actually pretty good. Like they had yeah, it's like our ActRaiser, Super Adventure Island, Gradius 3, Super R Type, Legend of the Mystical Ninja would show up occasionally. Paperboy 2, but let's ignore that one. Um, and yeah. So the list of games was actually pretty good.
You want to talk about how they like
Oh,
swapping out the controller for a stick too to make it look like a cabinet?
yeah, it's weird because it wasn't for every one of them because the Genesis one, the Genesis ones looked like it was just a controller, but the Neo Geo and the SNES ones had like their controller was it was like a stick. It wasn't um like it wasn't just a controller. The weird one that I found that was just a controller was NES though. The NES Advantage existed, like, and it was a very prominent thing. I don't know why they didn't have an advantage for those, but I digress. So yeah, uh, that's more, and also, I mean, uh, okay, I just noticed another thing on the list. Toki was on there on two different platforms.
Hmm.
The NES version, the Genesis version was on there. Don't know why they had that, but anyway. Also, and yeah, the challenges. It was like because if you think about how they mechanically had to do that, you really like they didn't want to have to play up to a game to a certain pot. Except for I remember there for ActRaiser, it would either always be Fillmore, so the first stage, or it would be Marana, which is like like more than halfway into the game for some reason. So I don't know unless they had a save there that they was like, oh, it's just it happens to be at Marana, so you're going to be playing that level. Um, I always thought that was weird, but yeah, it was always like you get 30 seconds and you have to get enough points. So at that point, it was like just play it. But then also once you play the game, they had to shut the machine off because I don't think they wanted to reset it again. Um, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on my general impressions. So we
Sorry, my apologies. One thing I did forget to talk about was the beginning game, which looked to be some kind of weird.
oh
The only one that I
yes,
saw was the stereo one, which seemed to be some kind of weird Pong thing.
here's a spoiler. They're all some variant of Pong, and they all okay, except for I believe there is like a shooting one. There's like a really bad like Math Blaster level shooting game. Uh, I kind of forgot about that because I started to skip that segment after a while because I just didn't want to watch it anymore.
Fair enough. No one was really good at it, but it also looked really bad to begin with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are three Pong variants: Star Defenders, Brainstorm, and Battle of the Bands. Then there were two, I guess you'd call them gallery shooters: Meteoroids, Laser Surgeon. And then there were 2D, like, sort of, I wouldn't say platformer, but sort of racer types called Post Haste, Jet Jocks, and Crater Rangers.
Huh. Yeah, I can't remember those, but I probably didn't remember them because they didn't put them in the stupid episodes that they had on sale.
Nope.
But yeah. So we've brought him up quite a while or a bit because he's kind of a big part of the show. So Torpo, how'd you feel about the presentation, the presenter, aka Phil Moore?
The presenter was great. Phil Moore was absolutely fantastic. He had a really solid energy that was infectious, and it was, in general, he did a really good job of presenting everything to at least the best of his ability, even if some of his game commentary was a bit
Yeah.
like he definitely struggled at times, even though he tried. But he did his best to carry the show, and it wouldn't be the same without him. The presentation in general, like they were obviously going for a video game vibe, even if a lot of it wasn't terribly video gamey. Like the weird question bit, where they would ask all kinds of questions, but some of them were really weirdly niche,
Yeah.
and it was really good because one time, Phil Moore, I don't remember what the question was, but had asked that both teams got it wrong, and immediately followed up with like the most softball question imaginable.
Yeah. Yeah. The question difficulty is very variant. Um, like it's like talking about like Supreme Court justices, and then like oh God, I can't remember what any of them are, but there was a very widespread of questions and all varying difficulties, and it wasn't like it was a gradual thing. Like it was just you'd be doing like first question would be super hard, but then later ones would be like super easy.
Alright.
Like it seemed like it was almost like pulling random cards out of a Trivial Pursuit package.
Yeah, it really did feel that way, didn't it?
Yeah. Except for there was one time they asked a question that was video game related, and it was about Bonk.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great because it looks like they didn't even bother having any TurboGrafx games.
Yeah, the only TurboGrafx game they had in the entire show's run was Parasol Stars for some reason.
Okay.
Which, don't get me wrong, Parasol Stars is great, but still.
But yeah, just in general, and we already went over the issues with like the map, going through the map, which they go through two different maps. So it's not like they just go through one and then continue after the break. No, it's they go through one of them, are interrupted by the break, and then go through another.
And are interrupted by the break.
Yes, because the break is always in the same spot at the same time, and they just basically revolve the format around that. Like there's no real like leniency in that regard. So it's, oh, we're going through a map, then shit, time's up. It's just about time for commercial break. Let's do the final question, and then commercial break. Like it's incredibly rigid.
Yeah.
But and then going more with the presentation, I do think the going into the video game bit was neat, but incredibly janky. It was really cool for what it was, but it's just a general complete lack of feedback, and also essentially kids are probably getting yelled at behind the screen. Yelled at not in an angry way, but just told what to do and where things are, and it's all messy. It's all very messy. To the point where once again kids will just get stuck in spots and don't know that they're taking damage until boom, game over.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I don't know. It's neat, but incredibly jank.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my opinion.
All right. Stove.
I mean, I agree for the most part. Like it seemed kind of low rent a bit. I do appreciate that they did have the different arcade standees up, and I guess even putting in the idea that it's kind of arcade based, so they do have some sticks, but not the advantage for whatever reason. I like that aspect, but yeah, just a lot of it seemed kind of low budget. You gotta love the robot the robot game where they distort the video and you have to guess where it is. One of the answers was playing with a dog, and they had to go to the judges like, can we just accept dog, because do we really want to be that semantic? And the answer was no that time. But then they're looking at a grocery cart. Someone says grocery cart, and it's like, no, they're at the grocery store. Like, what? I don't know. But
Well, to be fair, they did specify where is he? Like where is that being shot?
you could say, oh, they're at the grocery cart. That could be a location. No, it couldn't.
Where is
Technically
the
a
robot?
location.
BRB
Where-
gotta hang out with the boys at the grocery cart.
Where is the robot? So the robot is that dog.
Also, that robot footage was fucking horrible.
It was god awful.
It was some deep fried shit.
And then there was one that I didn't understand. They just played a few clips, and then the answer was Gloria Estefan. I'm like, what? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I remember that.
The clips were like, who are they referring to? But also, it was like incredibly dated. So watching it now is like, what?
Yeah, it was really weird.
That show dates itself really fucking hard.
Yeah. And then yeah, as Torpo said, the final challenge where they go into the video game and they have to fight the game wizards, just it's too jank. It's honestly before its time. Like, it wasn't really something that was ready to go yet. Especially if they were having to look at like a really small TV. Kind of as I said before, it's an issue where they're looking at a really small TV, like they're looking at a very small screen, but the sprites are too big for their hitboxes, and so they're continuously taking damage. And yes, they try to power through to get the orbs, but it most of the time doesn't work. So it just kind of winds up being kind of a wash in the end. And then yeah, Phil Moore brings so much energy to the show. It's actually pretty impressive. Like, he's always just kind of rolling with it. He's making the kids feel like I don't want to say welcome, because that's kind of a weird way to put it, but I guess comfortable with the game, even though like don't touch people's shoulders, man. Don't do that. But I think that's a game show host thing in the 90s. Just, hey, here, I'm gonna, rub your shoulders, give you a good talking to. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing that has changed with the times.
Yeah. But no, Fillmore was great. I actually liked him. Not I want to say something about the contestants, but I realize that they're children, so it's kind of can't really say anything because they
criticize the children.
Yep.
They find these people, man.
So in that interview that Fillmore gives, he basically talks about his experience working with the kids, and that he always felt sorry for the kids because he working out, like, I imagine working on a game show like that, especially for the first time, is probably a very daunting experience. The only thing that he said that really frustrated him was some of the answers that kids would give, and him having to restrain himself from having a conniption fit at kids getting very simple questions wrong. He gives an example of, there was a kid that the question was, there is a phrase that is commonly associated with a particular city that has to do with American history. The phrase is "remember the blank," and the kid says, "Remember the Amico," and he almost lost it. Like he said, that is the first time I ever had to physically restrain myself from swearing on TV. And this kid, because of how ridiculous of an answer that was.
Old Amico.
Maybe
Remember the
under
Amico.
the table.
Yeah. But yeah, it's also, yeah, they're kids. Basically, they described like the process of getting it as like, basically apparently they brought in a bunch of like high school, middle school kids and just brought them in to play games, and like they had like interns kind of interviewing them, and then they're like, well, just pick some of these kids, and then that was essentially it. So
it's always interesting how the crowd was entirely kids.
Yeah.
That was often the case, though, with pretty much any game show that is directed toward children. The audience is most likely going to be almost entirely, if not 100% children.
In general, like, isn't it a thing, or was it a thing where if you were like visiting the lot, you got to sometimes go to these shows for free or something like that?
Yeah.
It was an yeah, it was, I don't know if it was for free, but it was definitely a thing that you could do there.
It's also the same thing as almost any TV show. There are few TV shows that are going to make you actually pay to get in. Like, they would rather just make sure that all of the seats are filled, that there's a big audience and they're having fun, rather than make everyone pay for the show and, maybe there's half a crowd and they're not getting their money's worth, or they don't feel like they are. So they're not having as much fun, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all I got. Just Fillmore's pretty good. I kind of like him.
All right. Kuya.
We've said a lot about Phil Moore. We haven't said anything about Andrea Lively, who is the narrator. As mentioned, Phil Moore wasn't really much of a commentator when it came to the face-off and the video challenges and all that. I am left to wonder if they had let Andrea Lively do the commentary for those, how different that would be. Like, would it be better? Would it be worse? I don't know. I feel like it would probably be at least a little better. Which again is not to say anything bad about Phil Moore. He's not much of a commentator, but he's one hell of a kids game show host. He is very energetic, knows how to keep the show going, knows how to handle the contestants. Yeah, that's my bit on that pretty much.
Okay. X.
So I got to be honest. Like when I watched that first episode, I kind of just like it lacked energy. It felt, and then I watched a couple more episodes, and I feel like even though that in some way kind of contradicts what I said about like you get an idea of what the show is like at the start of the this cast. Um, it's you kind of really need to pay attention to more because he's it's almost kind of uh I can't think of the word, but he catches you off guard because you start off with this very lackluster. Oh, looks like the wave is going in. Oh no, and that hit, and there's just no commentary. There's no energy to that opening segment, and then bam, right into the talking to the kids, talking about the game, talking about the format of the episode, and it's just this bizarre switch between the two. And he has this awkward energy to him. Like he's got energy, but it's very awkward. Like when they're switching between uh like when they switch from the map to the arcade, you always catch him singing along to the tune because he doesn't know what else to do with himself in the time that it takes to switch over, and they're not editing any of this. They're just keeping everything in, everything from his humming and singing along to the flubs. There's this awkward energy to the entire presentation of it, but it's also kind of impersonal. One of the interesting things about Guts was that they took time out of the show to introduce you to the kids or the challengers. They told you a little bit about them. They talked to them, and in this, you get like a very brief, hey, I hear you like to do art. That's fantastic. Why? Oh, okay, because you're a kid. Cool. And then moving right along. Like it's just this bizarrely impersonal feel to this show a bit. Um, and we've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating how rigid the structure is, where most of the time you're not reaching the goal and playing the game the way it was meant to be played. You're being forced into the goal, and then just somebody answer it correctly so we can move the hell on. That is its huge weakness, is the kids don't get a real chance to explore the board, to try out the different events, to earn the different prizes. The enemy is oddly placed. There's a bunch of them. There was the one episode where they got the enemy one right after another, not using all. They didn't really reuse the different locations, so you almost constantly had. And I know this was mentioned already, but you almost constantly had either the mall or Mikey's neighborhood, which meant you ended up with the bully since he was the enemy for those areas. Um, Presentation wise, it's very all over the place. Whereas Phil, and then there's Phil Moore trying to just keep it all together and corral these children through these mini games and these events. Uh, some of which are really fun, the video challenge, and some that are absolute horse shit, like the robot. Um, and it's just an interesting, very interesting show with a very not fabricated, uh, fragmented kind of format.
Yeah.
I know
Like,
one thing to note is as far as Phil singing all the time, that wasn't really his idea. They had to break for like 20 minutes for whatever reason, and they were playing the music on a continuous loop during that entire time. And so he just started singing with that. And when he proceeded to not sing during the show, they cut the show and told him what happened to the singing, and just made him sing, forced him to sing on the show all the freaking time.
That's unfortunate.
Poor guy. It's still funny though, because the one episode, it almost seems like now that you say that, it almost seems like he didn't want to do it. It's just very like dun, 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 dun. And he does it very quietly, almost like he's being like ordered to do it. It's funny.
Yeah, and he is.
It was just an interesting thing that I noted, and the fact that they didn't cut it out, that also explains it. But yeah, just those are my thoughts.
all right. Yeah, Phil Moore was a really great host, and he apparently still has a lot of energy for the show itself. He's done apparently a few things that are similar to Nick Arcade, like at like one-time things. He apparently tried to have something called VG Rumble that was apparently did not pan out. But that is he apparently still has a really lot of uh, passion for stuff that he does, and also like apparently he like after he worked on Nick Arcade, he apparently did stuff for like Tech TV. So he worked on like in G4, like he worked on like Attack of the Show, and I forgot what other thing he mentioned. So he kind of almost stayed a little bit in the gaming arena. Like apparently he worked on even some reviewing for a little bit. Um, so he definitely had a passion for it. That is something that is undeniable. The set is a little weird, but yeah, I agree with Stove. Mikey looks a little weird,
He looks like a low rent
Espe-
Rayman.
especially that the little intro or the intermission animation they do between like the first and second round, where they just kind of very awkwardly shift around just a static picture of him, and then he eventually gets a thumbs up, and it looks really bad.
I get a feeling that's going to be the thumbnail for this episode.
If I can find a picture of it, probably.
There's one in the chat.
Posted.
Oh yes, that'll probably be the one that I use. Yeah, that'll definitely be the one that I use.
The art in general was
It'll fit.
questionable.
It'll fit with the color of the thumbnail too, which is great.
Just the art in general was certainly something.
Yeah, why doesn't he have a nose? I never
He
really
doesn't
thought
need a
about it.
nose.
Why doesn't he have a nose?
That's the first thing I noticed. He didn't have a nose. I was like, okay, it's a choice.
Yeah,
That's our stuff.
Because I just like looked at it. I just like in my mind, I guess I just put like a dot there where his nose would be. Like my mind did that just to save it from itself, and then I'm looking at it now saying that, and it's just why doesn't he have a nose? It's like Krillin without charm.
Yeah, but he dies less.
That is true, but he still lives in the end, so it all matters.
Well,
Oh,
no,
she's
he
out.
dies constantly. There's like a
Buddy,
million different enemies.
But he revives again, so he still doesn't matter.
Constantly by pies.
Yes. Anyway, so I think we've already kind of talked about this, but we can probably go into a little bit deeper dive of things that we might not have talked about. Axe, how do you think about the format of the show?
I mean, it's weird because the only other thing we really have to go this up against is Guts, right? And Guts felt like a full-on episode, even if it wasn't that interesting to us. It felt like a full episode. Nick Arcade, the way it rushes through, didn't feel like a full episode. It felt like they only had like 10 minutes to record the episode before they had to switch it over to something some other people actually wanted to watch. Like, it was very frustrating to watch and see these kids not get the chance to actually and it could be very one-sided as well. There was an episode where the yellow team basically dominated the entire board. And so I think it was like an entire round where the yellow team ended up with like 100 points and the red team had like no points whatsoever. So it was odd. The whole format had this odd feel to it where it didn't feel fully fleshed out. It felt like a really good prototype for a fuller episode, for a fuller show, but it just wasn't given the budget and the time to really be realized.
Also, landslides were super fucking common. Super common.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like one time yellow, and it was a lot of time it was yellow team. Yellow team won by like 200 point difference, which was
There was
ridiculous.
so much luck involved, almost frustratingly so.
Yeah. And at some points, like the challenges were the video challenges were kind of easy. Like, you really had to try hard to not get 3,000 points in King of the Monsters. And one time, one kid didn't get 3,000 points, and I was shocked by that. But
That was because the enemy kept running away.
yeah, so like it's like with the pop quiz, where the questions have no curve. There's no build up. It's just straight on, up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's kind of what the format was. It was just a lot of spiking, hills and valleys. Yeah, I'm out of things to say. That's kind of what I thought of it.
All right. Koyo.
I guess a few things that I'll touch on things that I would probably have done differently a little bit. First of all, the video puzzles, pop quizzes should definitely have been more video game related. If they're going to make a game show about video games, go all in. Don't half-ass it. Don't like throw all of this random other stuff just because you don't really know what to do with the format of the show. You have a format of the show. It is video games. Cash in on that. Second thing is the for the face-off, don't have a face-off for the second round. Whoever is trailing behind at the end of the first round, they get to start the second round. Give them a potential chance to catch up. Thirdly, give the players a way, even if it's difficult, to fend off the enemy. Like, maybe you win a video challenge, you get an extra life or something, and that gives you at least a chance to repel the enemy.
Also, gonna be honest really quick. Going first makes no difference for the map because it's all fucking luck.
Well,
Yeah, because you could hit the bully and then completely lose your chance.
You can hit the bully 3 times in a fucking row.
Yeah, that's also a thing. It's like that there definitely needs to be a lot more balance to that, because you just with some bad luck, the same team can end up having control over an entire round. One thing that I was kind of thinking of as well is have an incentive for hitting the goal, because as the show stands, the only incentive that you have for hitting the goal is that if you get the question wrong, the other team only gets 25 base points. So, 25 in the first round, 50 in the second, instead of getting, the full 50 base points. So have some incentive, like you get a few bonus points, you get a prize, I don't know, whatever you want to do. But since that's the intended format of the show is to get to the goal, then why not have an additional incentive to get to the goal? without taking away the incentive of exploring the board, which you can't really explore the board with the small amount of time that they have to actually do the show. So it's
I
kind of a trade-off.
I just had a thought that I wonder might be a better way of doing that format. Have them just explore the map and basically say that you were trying to find the goal. But the thing is that you would just go about the board and it would be random things up until they hit the time limit, in which then that is the next thing that will show up is the goal automatically. Like have it be hidden, and it's like,
Okay.
oh, you found the goal. But
That would also work actually. Just the goal would not actually be on the board. Just when time runs out, wherever the players move, that's where the goal is. All of a sudden, that kind of works. And one last thing that I think would be a nice touch, but for how limited the budget was and for how limited the time was, I don't think would have actually fit, is have the video game wizard be an actual actor who shows up in the studio and just kind of taunting the players the entire time.
yeah, I that seems like something that it would do. Yeah, or just have it like show up on the board occasionally, something like that.
That might also work, but I in the image that I have in my head, just having an actual actor in the studio posing as the video game wizard would definitely add some entertainment value.
Okay, is that what you had to say?
Yeah.
Okay, Stove.
I mean, there's only one of two ways you could go about like improving the format, because it's very rigid and very rushed for what it is. One option is to extend the show itself, but I don't think I get the feeling that after like I think 23 minutes is a good time for the show, but it's just not enough time to get everything done. So the only other thing I could think of would be to just have it be one map. Like you don't need to have a second map. Just have him. He's exploring the mall in general. He's exploring his neighborhood in general. That way, you'd be able to. You can just say, "Oh, well, it looks like we have to take a break. We'll come back to hopefully have Mikey find the goal, and then, as Lolo said, just have the goal be random somewhere on the map itself." But as it stands, it works in theory. Like it's not perfect in practice. It's still an enjoyable show in general, really, but the format really just kind of brings it down a bit, because in the end you just have a lot of things that don't aren't related to video games, a lot of squares that are pretty much just advertisements or watching a bad animation throw a pie in your face, and then like as was said earlier, you only have like what, maybe 2, 3, 4 video challenges a game, so you don't even really get to see that many video games, which would be mostly what you're there for. So yeah, I would say either they'd have to extend the game itself, extend the show itself, or just cut back a little on what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
Okay, Torpo.
It is rigid to the point of hindering it greatly. It's a show that wants to take its time in a format that does not allow it to do so, and it is very evident every turn. Between the super short timers for like the fucking video games to constantly being told, we ran out of time, we're gonna rush you to the goal for the maps. Which usually ends up with both maps too, I might add. Not just the first one, which has a commercial break, but both of them. It's just you can feel the time constraints and definitely the budget constraints, and it definitely feels like they weren't like meant to be like a top tier game show, but more there to fill a time slot.
And also kind of a niche.
What was that?
Also kind of a niche.
Yeah, it's definitely niche. But yeah, so it's the format it's trapped in essentially is kind of what brings it down more than anything. But I still think it was fun. So yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if they just had to do this like, oh yeah, it's a game show, so we ought to have the questions. But yeah, it just felt very weird. Um, so for my thing, I know this is gonna sound a little like I don't know if ancestral is a bit the right word, but I feel like I do have to bring it up because it is something that many of us are very familiar with. Um, and that is actually so this this it is especially with the group of people that we are in. A lot of us are familiar with a particular web production that is called Arcade Pit, which is streamer Smite decided to essentially take the format of Nick Arcade and kind of expand on it. And it's essentially what Arcade Pit is essentially Nick Arcade plus.
My
Um,
legacy lives on.
yes. Um, so basically did the thing where it's like, oh, all the questions are video game based. The you don't it's not super time limited. So like you're always just going around the board and then when the goal is that's when it ends. Um, but yeah, I forgot what my point was, but essentially, yeah, I do feel like it does show that if they kind of expand on that, this could be a lot better. I feel like not that it's say that it's super bad, but yeah, um, they need to give more time to things. Like I felt like maybe one round that just kind of expanded on, I feel like would probably be better. Also, the last thing going into the video zone that need to be like at least 45 seconds, if not a full minute. Because yeah, there was just so many times where they got screwed over at the end because just like the certain animations for things just lasted too long. Like there was just waiting that they really couldn't avoid. Um,
Well, didn't they get an entire minute?
no, they got 30 seconds. They only got the video zone you only get 30 seconds. At least I'm pretty sure you only get 30
No,
seconds.
it was a minute.
Oh, was
60
it a full
seconds.
minute?
60 seconds total.
It was a
Huh.
minute, but the problem is you have 3 rounds to get through in the entire minute.
I thought it
Yeah.
was okay. Well, a minute and a half at least. Then
In some of those segments, have you on a basically waste your time.
yeah,
Like the
especially
minecart where you have to wait.
yeah, like that one was great also because that's the one that had the most egregious hitboxes into.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was the worst one to watch because you could see where they were definitely not near where they could get hit, but they still got hit. It's bullshit.
I still like that one of the segments of that one was so bad, the rat, that they intentionally gave you a full health power up to eat the hit.
Yeah, I think that was the one they have to wait to.
Yeah. No, that was the minecart.
Yep. Yeah. So it's good, but it definitely could use a little bit of tweaking. So yeah, with that, we have one final question. Turpo, would you want to be on this?
God, no. I mean, games are fun and all, but it's mostly not games. It's just dumb trivia, being forced through a map awkwardly, and then just that really fucking awkward game at the end. Also, I'm very tall. I am exceptionally tall.
I just imagine you get to the video zone and it's like your head doesn't even show up.
Pretty much. Like I am very, very tall. This is important to note. So that game would be pure fucking misery for me.
You just stick your arm out and it's just you have managed to grab all 3 of the tokens at once.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just do it like a fan motion, end up grabbing all the orbs.
Also, I'm very lazy and don't like exerting myself.
Yeah. Stove.
As a kid, yeah. If they were to do, we're gonna have an adult Nick Arcade, yeah, sure, why not? No, I wouldn't want to do that. I think, kind of as you brought up, like I'll be on Arcade Pit because I don't have to do anything physically, so that kind of works out for me. But
My
yes,
legacy lives on.
and in terms of like having to do some kind of physical challenge or answer questions about Supreme Court justices, I'm just here for the video games, man. I might have to draw something, but that's fine. I don't have to look at a red screen and try to strain my eyes and figure out are we at the pool or are we at fucking McDonald's? What's going on here? I don't need to do any of that shit. So yeah, I wouldn't want to do that now. But if I was a kid, I probably would have wanted to do it.
Yeah, like I hate drawing, but that shit kills me even more. Also, if you're mentioning, as a kid, I was also very tall. I have never not been tall all my life. So
Yeah. Coolio.
At the time, I actually didn't have a Nickelodeon, seeing as I'm up in Canada. So I only got to see a couple of episodes of the show, like ever at the time. But it definitely seemed like an interesting thing. If I had been more aware of, if I had watched more of the show, I would probably be totally into it and would want to, participate if I could, which being in Canada, probably can't. But at this point, they would have to tweak the format to be a little bit more on point, let's say. I would definitely be interested in trying the Video Zone. As opposed to Torpo, I am not tall at all. So if it's anything hitbox related, I'm probably good. But right now, I guess it'd be kind of a toss. It would depend on what they were doing with it.
All right. Also, I feel like the doing this this is more the as a child is in parentheses because it'd be normally weird. Period to have someone our age to be in a show with a bunch of kids.
Gonna kick your fucking asses at Turrican, bitches.
For some reason, the image that appeared into my head was not any of us being on it, but having all the kids. And then for some reason, Giant Bomb's Jeff Gersman just being there.
No, it'd be Dan.
And Jeff, why not?
Yeah,
No.
either one of those would be good. I don't know. I just find Jeff just funnier because I know he would not give a shit.
Joke's on you. For some reason, it's Rory.
God.
Actually, I'm just thinking, like, they could do the Video Zone so much better now. Like, there's virtual reality. They could also do augmented reality. So if
they
they
got
were,
that Google Glass up in there.
Yeah, they could get a laser tag vest that vibrates whenever they take damage.
yeah,
That would
Give
be
them
nice.
feedback.
there is so many things that are more widely available now and make the Video Zone so much better. So I would totally be down for a modernized Nick Arcade.
Yeah. So Axe.
As a kid, yeah, like I said at the start of this, I aspired to be on the show, never made it there. But as a kid, fuck yeah, I wanted to be on this show. As an adult, my body's shitty now, so no, I would not want to move around, be asked questions that I don't know the answers to. There's a reason why you've never seen me on Arcade Pit, because not only do I not know the answers, but also I'm very nasty when I'm competing. So, yeah,
My
no,
legacy lives on.
I'm perfectly fine not being on Nick Arcade.
I need to actually watch Arcade Pit. I haven't done so yet.
My legacy lives on.
It's interesting. You should watch it.
Yes.
So
They don't even know my name anymore. Just what I did.
Revamp Nick Arcade, except the Video Zone is just replaced inexplicably with the Running Man.
Yeah.
It's just American Gladiators now. Enjoy the foam balls.
Yeah,
in your
but they're
face.
all in cosplay. That's the difference.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's time for us to actually rank this. So,
What about you, Lolo?
Oh, yeah. I as a kid, I'd probably want to be on it, but now, no.
All right,
I am not mobile enough anymore.
I don't think any of us really are.
We have reached the things are just randomly hurting in stage in life, so that is beyond me.
doctors saying, "This is how you're gonna live now."
Yeah.
Question to kind of back off of this one: would you want to be the host of this show?
Ooh.
No.
Fair enough.
I don't know that I'd want to host a children's show. I definitely would want to be a game show host, but not to this.
I'm already host of enough bullshit right now.
I
gonna
would just
build-
because I can't well, okay. Coolio can attest that I can curb my language, but I have my limits.
Yes, you have been on 2 episodes of my show.
I
Remember-
came very close to cursing on the second one.
Remember the Amico.
Remember the Amic? Are you fucking kidding me? You kidding me with this bullshit right now?
No, that's why you rub their face in it. See, like, I'm too petty and shitty to do anything like that.
Shout out to Amico, I guess. No, you're wrong, kid.
You dumb little shit. It was the fucking.
The
It
Alamo.
was
What
the
the
Americana.
fuck?
Remember the Texaco.
Yes. All right. So I think it is time for us to finally rank this. So, we rank things here on a 1 to 21 scale with some extras, which I don't think this is going to really involve. But yeah, 21 being don't even bother. It is complete garbage, like not even ironically fun to watch. To 1, which is absolute, like it is completely, it is polished to a mere sheen and probably the best of its genre. So X, what would you give this?
I put this at a 6. It's pleasant to watch. It's got its problems, but it's enjoyable.
Okay, Coolio.
So looking at the table as it stands now, Nickelodeon Guts is currently sitting at 10. I definitely watch this over Guts. I'm thinking probably not as high as Axe. Thinking at or around 8.
Okay, Stove.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking 8 because it is pretty good. Like, if anything, its flaw is just the format's not the best, but even then, like with the format it has, it's still enjoyable enough. I think 8 is fine.
Okay, Turbo.
Yeah. Once again, given my feelings on Guts, I would say this would be like a fucking 7 or 8.
Okay. So yeah, a majority somewhere between 6 and 8. Going probably a little bit into the middle, so around the 7 era or 7 region. Which right now, what we have in 7 is the Running Man, Tron, and East 2. If I were to think about this, I actually would probably say 7 at least.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what yeah, I feel like 7 probably. And like the problem is we don't currently have any 8s, and the part of me that's like, oh, we finally have something in 8, but that's
As
not
Torpid
right.
is
That's
be-
not
As
that's not
Torpid
how
is prone to saying, we don't need to fit it in a spot just to fill a spot.
Yeah, let's
And
put
we
it in
don't.
8 though.
Shut up, Torpid. You just shut the fuck up right now.
Being a contrarian to the last.
Hi, Torpid. I say things, but I don't mean them.
Look, all I'm saying is I would watch The Running Man over this.
Well, remember also it's in probably the same region, so in between everything that's in 7, there are plus and minuses. So just because you'd watch something over it doesn't mean
I will
that
slap the
necessarily.
shit out of you.
Would you rather watch the Running Man movie or the Running Man game show?
I mean, I don't want to see people die, so I'd rather watch the movie.
I mean, I want to watch American Gladiators.
People don't die in American Gladiators, though. They just get in the face and just almost lose their eye.
True.
Scratch Corny is basically like dying.
Yeah, I would probably die just of embarrassment of getting pegged in the face with a tennis ball. God.
Flip a coin.
I'm just trying to think. the things I definitely don't feel like it is 6 quality because we got like stuff like Labyrinth, Mortal Kombat, Hunt for Red October. I still feel like it's a little bit lower than that. So I'm thinking 7 or 8. Um, mm, I don't
India,
want
okay with either one.
to. Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
I can bump down to a 7. I can see those arguments.
But I'm not going any lower.
yeah, it's not going
Yeah,
any
no.
lower. Yeah, it's 7 or 8.
Make a joke for X. Just like I'll go to 7, but that's that's the best I can do.
Shush
Um,
for me, thanks, Stove.
Yeah, you're welcome. I punched it up for you just a little bit.
You're my pal.
God, yeah, it's so. Mm. See, this is where the thing where I'm thinking like, oh, if only we can go in between two things, but then that is just no, we
Let's
can't
hope
do
we
that.
can
Then you're setting
That is,
decimals.
I was gonna say that is an amoeba split, and that's gonna get us to have like 2,000 rankings on here, and then we're just at the point of having everything as its own ranking
We're
again.
right back to normal.
Yeah.
God, I really can't think of whether to put in 7 or 8. I almost think that a coin flip might actually work.
I feel
We'll be
like
back after this.
if it's a question of like should it be higher, I would say it should default to be higher. Because if 7 is like an option, I would say just put it at 7. As much as you want to fill 8, you don't have to.
Yeah.
No, that
Yeah.
that logic kind of follows for me.
Yeah, I'm fine with that because it makes more sense. And it's like, oh, we can finally have an 8. The fact that that's even filling my mind, I have a feeling that that's actually throwing it off. So yeah, I think 7's probably good. Okay, Nick Arcade, that's 7. That's episode 31, 1992. I'll fill that in later. And by that, I mean I won't fill it in later and I'll forget, and then I'll do it at a later date. This is definitely a kid's show.
Well, I mean, later.
Tone.
90. Cool.
I need 90s thing. I didn't even know I had one.
Video games.
I think I'll just put happy for that. Oh, that's not happy. That is Toho.
Oh,
It's very anime, yes.
please remake Nick Arcade, but only have Toho games on there.
You could do
No.
that. You could actually do
No.
that.
No.
Don't matter.
Cool
Toho, or that Smite won't put shmups in arcade pit.
I feel like they are kind of going for at least kind of cool.
I would probably put it whimsical, just like the thing that we put.
Yeah.
Whimsical.
It's not like with Mike O'Malley where he's got all that slang. He's hip, all right. No, this dude was awkward as hell.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Is there anything we want to call out for music, charm, cinematography, story? Which no. Action or art?
It's super campy.
The story. The man has to figure out which shirt he wants to wear and has to decide each week whether or not he wants to wear a different shirt.
He won't stop wearing the gold shirt.
I think that with that, I think a thumbs up and charm would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Let's see. The music was that the theme was okay, but
Do. It's kind of
Yeah.
earwormy, kind of.
it is kind of earwormy. Actually, I wonder if I should put the earworm charm for that.
Probably should.
Yeah. It a lot of it just because even if he doesn't want to sing to it, it does get very catchy because he's doing it and you kind of want to do it yourself too.
Yeah, I can.
Especially if he doesn't want to do it. Please let me stop singing.
His own personal hell.
Never stop partying, Slurms.
It's pretty apt, actually. Yeah.
Where Wazzle?
Yeah, I think putting earworm music and charm or thumbs up and charm is pretty good. Yay or nay? So it's not technically the way we normally use it, but I'm going to put length and nay. Or yeah,
for technical, there's one that's called neat idea, but not really well executed.
Yes, that can be. Yeah, that would definitely fit.
That and length and nay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of technically like it's not that the show itself is too short. It's the
Yeah.
fact that it's just for what they wanted to do, it was too short. I can't really think of anything else though.
I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's Nick Arcade. We have ranked that because we could watch more seasons of it, but that's kind of all that's available. And probably I am looking forward to the time in which we look at actually a different show that is very similar, um, but is actually much earlier. In fact, almost a decade earlier. That is Starcade. But that will be probably for a while because no one's heard of it, and therefore it's not going to win any polls.
Which is a
But
shame.
Do you want to see people lose badly at Dragon's Lair? I would suggest
yes,
watching
yes, I do
Starcade.
actually.
You could always just not put it up for poll.
No, I want to see them lose incredibly at fucking Castle of Cagliostro, chopped up for a Dragon's Lair. Like,
Yes, that actually, yes, that is why I want to watch that. Anyway, that is something else. So before we part, Axe, is there anything you want to plug?
Just my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/axeimmortal.
Okay, Koyo.
Yes, two things. First, the Let's Play group that I'm in, Low Bias Gaming at lowbiasgaming.net, as well as my podcast, Squarewave Symphony, your home for video games, chiptunes, and all things weird and geeky. That's available at lowbiasgaming.net/squaresim, as well as at squaresim, SYM, on Twitter.
Okay, Stove.
I can be found at twitch.tv/portablestove. And actually, I think the Sunday after this goes up, or maybe not. I don't really remember times, but I will be on Arcade shortly.
So just for reference, this episode will go live June 9th. So are you talking about the June 14th?
Yes, on June 14th, I'll be on Arcade Pit, which is the aforementioned Nick Arcade successor. Torpid's legacy lives on. And that'll be at twitch.tv/smite. That is SMIGHT.
Yes, it's twitch.tv/smigot.
God, fucking fond memories of him changing his name because people kept asking why the Smite servers were down. This was legitimately a problem.
Yeah. Torpo.
Twitch.tv/torpotypist and at torpotypist on Twitter. And I would like to plug the hole I can't seem to get past in this fucking blue screen game.
Yes. So yeah, that will do it for this episode. Next week we because this is now starting to go into June, there isn't anything, there really isn't any video game related thing that I could do because I do want to have some episodes that are in relation to Pride Month. So I stretched things and because International Karate, Ron Hubbard ripped off the music from this movie.
Also, Takeshi's Challenge.
Also, Takeshi's Challenge because Beat Takeshi is in it, so we have some reference to who Beat Takeshi was. Also, Ryuichi Sakamoto, who is involved somehow in various niche game things. Also, David Bowie. But anyway, yes, we're taking a look at the movie Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Which is going to be quite a mood shift from the things we have ranked recently.
Holy shit, it is!
I don't think we've dealt with anything of this weight since, like, Area 88.
It's hard to find something this heavy, and this is far heavier than Area 88.
Yeah. So that will be interesting, but I'll be honest, when I started Media Delta, things like Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence is the reason why I did this. Because I feel like it is something that is relatively obscure.
It's a good Christmas movie.
Yes, it's a good Christmas movie, much like Watership Down's a great Easter movie.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So I feel like that'll be a interesting discussion. So yeah, that will be next week. So I hope you tune in for that one. And again, thank you all for listening.
Can't wait to fight the gay thoughts.
Yes. and we're not that's kind of what the movie's about. Just to be clear.
Gotta clear that one up, folks.
All right, thank you all for listening. If you would like to look at the full list of rankings for yourself, please visit r3.ldp.life and go to the Media Delta List tab. If you would like to watch Media Delta's sister show, Retro Rank Rhapsody, you can either watch at youtube.ldp.life or by tuning into twitch.tv/LoadedPuzzlo at 7:30 p.m. on Fridays, 2:30 p.m. on Saturdays, and 1 p.m. on Sundays. All those times are from the Eastern U.S. time zone. If you would like to discuss this episode with the community, you can do so by joining our Discord server, which you can do so by going to discord.ldp.life. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you tune in for our next episode.